this video, we are going to talk about another important function in the DAX world, which is the summarize columns. Basically, summarize columns will help you to aggregate the data for specified dimension attributes and specified measures. Um, Along with summarize columns, we're going to talk about the dependent functions, which are ignore, non-usual, and roll up, add is subtotal, and roll up group. So we'll go one by one how those functions, the dependent functions, will support the summarize columns and change the behavior of the summarize columns during the runtime query execution. Okay, so the first query that we write here, so which is where I'm trying to fetch the my internet sales customer IDs. Since we haven't mentioned any measure group, so the group by name, the group by function will not come to the picture. So it will show all your column values in detailed way. That is the one thing. So let's check the count of records, summarize columns. So these are the distinct count of records. I am getting it from the table since there is no reference with respect to the measure group. It fetch the all records. Now I want to join this my internet sales with my customer dimension, but this time I want to fetch only the customer IDs which are related to the their first name is Alicia. Okay, so before we join and find out the behavior of the summarize columns, let's first see how many customer IDs that we are getting from the customer dimension when we filter at the first name equals to Alicia. Okay, and then here you can see there are the limited records that we are getting, right? Whoever having the first name is Alicia. Okay, so this is we use the filter function here, and we filter out the based on the specified column. Don't worry about it, I will come back how we use the filter function in the DAX. Okay, there are three types of the filter functions. One is the filters, and keep filter. So I will have a separate session on that to cover those three functions. But yeah, at high level, filter function we use to filter the data. Okay, now so this query, actually I join the my internet sales customer ID with my customer dimension. Now here what is my expectation is, wherever the first name is Alicia, I want to bring those respective customer IDs from my internet sales. Now let's execute this, and you can see here there is a strange behavior, right? So I'm expecting only few records, but the system is actually giving a lot of records. Okay, the reason is, hold on, I think let me copy this and see how many records that we are getting. Let me put it in Excel. That is the best way. Usually I do this way. Let's see how many records we are getting, and then here if I copy these customer IDs and then delete the duplicate records, then let's see how many records we are getting. You can see here we are getting the 18485. So 18485 is our total customer count that you see here. Okay, so that means since we haven't selected any measure group here, right, due to that reason the summarize column still it's fetching the detailed information for the specified filter. So basically it's applying the cross join. That's the reason you see all the customer IDs from the internet sales. Now here in this query I added the internet sales amount as my measure group. So now what is the expectation is, it will fetch the customer ID and the education, who the customers are having the education, and the first name is Alicia and their sales amount. Let's see whether you get the same values or not. right? So now you see it's only fetching the limited records because of adding the measure group. So the group by column is came to the picture, and it's enabled the relation between the two tables and fetch the respective filtered data. So this is how the summarize column works. Even instead of sum, you can change the average function. So which you will get, I think, is that average? Yeah, average is the full name that we need to use. Okay, and then you can run it. Okay, not only average, you can fetch max and minimum. Any aggregated function you can write, it will fetch the data. So now, for now, we'll use the sum function. Okay, sum aggregated. So now the data is aggregated. So customer ID level and education level. So this is how you can fetch it. Okay, but in normally, if you look at the same query using the summarize function, in the summarize function, all the time we need to refer the table name first, and then we'll start, you know, having the column names from the different dimension and different table. But in summarize columns, you don't need to have any reference, table reference in the starting. Directly, you can start referring the attribute names from the respective dimension and respective fact table. That is the one key difference that you need to understand. Okay. Now moving on. So this is the ignore function is the one of the dependent function which supports the summarize columns, and it will change the behavior of the summarize behavior or context of the summarize columns during the query execution. And this ignore function only can be used in the summarize column function. Now let's get into the detail how this ignore will help summarize to tune the data. Now the first query here I executed, so I'm trying to fetch the internet sales amount for the customer IDs, and also I have the so there is a condition that I applied, right? If my sales amount is $7.28, and then market as a one, flag one. Otherwise, it will be the blank. Now, if since I executed here, you can see all the customer IDs from the internet sales, and then their sales amount, and then the blank values. This is a new column that we derived. Wherever that condition not satisfy, okay, it will fetch the blank, but wherever it's satisfied, it fetch the one. Okay, so now I don't want these blank values. My requirement is wherever this condition is satisfied, I want to fetch only those column, those rows. Now that's the way the ignore function will help you. So basically, ignore function will ignore the blank and null values. Okay, so now you can see here uh, it fetched only the non-blank values or non-null values from the new column. So ignore is basically you need to apply on the main reference column. Okay, so this is the reference column that I'm talking about, which is coming from the internet sales. So you want to ignore blank or null value after you fetch the results. In this scenario, so this measure is actually fetching the blank rows, right? So you're telling that ignore the sales amount with reference of other measures wherever it's a blank. That's how it will work. So I hope it's clear. Again, I'm just repeating. So the ignore function that you applied on the sales amount, once your results are fetched based on your logic, if at all any null records are there or blank records are there at any attribute or any measure or any calculated measure, it will omit those values. That's how the ignore function works. That's the reason you see here the blank, wherever you have a blank, those records been excluded. To have a better visibility, let me change this ignore function from here to newly calculated measure. Okay, and see what will happen. So now you see it won't exclude, because this value you're telling that, okay, ignore the null records by taking the reference of this column. Okay, whatever the results said that you get it right from the summarize columns, on top of it you're telling that ignore the blank rows. But sales amount don't have any blank rows, it has all the valid records. But on the this column is having the blank rows, but it won't exclude. Okay, so this is how I mean the summarize columns context will change little bit. Okay, when using the dependent functions in the DAX. Okay, now I just roll back my statement and use the ignore. So now you can see it's again excluded the blank values from the derived column. Now moving on, so that's how the ignore function works. So ignore function is only can be used in the summarize columns. You cannot use it anywhere else. Now coming to the other dependent function is the non-visual function. Okay, so again this function also works within the summarize columns function, which will help you to bring the grand total at any level. Okay, so I'll show you how it will works in the real-time scenario. Okay, so now this is the query. Here what I'm doing, I'm trying to fetch the sales amount for the bikes. Bikes is my product category name. And also in the second query what I'm doing, I'm storing the my sum of internet sales amount here. Look at carefully. So here I'm not applying any filter within my while I'm doing the aggregation of my sales amount to define the calculated measure. Now, so that means this measure is basically fetch irrespective of product category. It will fetch entire sales amount, whatever the sales amount is available in the my tabular queue. Now, if we go to summarize columns, what I'm doing here, I'm just filtering the bikes and clothing information, and I want to bring their sales amount. Okay, along with that I want to bring the grand total of my internet sales amount irrespective of my category name filter. Okay, so now let's execute what I'll get it. Now you can see here you're getting the visuals. Oh, so I didn't use the non-visuals, that's the reason it's showing the detailed information for the product category name level. You can see here product category bikes and clothing, and it's showing the individual value. And this last measure I created, so whatever the calculated measure that I defined here, right? So again I can do the filter within my summarize columns. That is possible. This time what I did the filter on the bikes product category name. That's the reason the bikes product category name value is showing, the other one is showing as a blank. Now if I apply this, okay, so this is the second statement. I just prepared it. It's the same statement that you get the similar results. It's a sum of you know for your individual values and grand total. Okay, for the all selected, but it's a like treat as and filter. That's how you can filter out the data. To show you that, I just created this statement. Don't get confused. The both statement, this one, uh, this statement, and the second statement, both are the same. Okay. Now here is the magic that we are going to apply the non-visuals. Now what magic will happen? We'll see. Now here I applied the non-visuals. Okay. Now you can see here I got my bikes and clothing sales information. Along with that, I got my grand total of my sales amount irrespective of my product category name. Why do you need the grand total? Some cases we do, the percentage of the bikes contribution on top of the grand total, right? So to do those kind of calculations, so you need the grand total column, right? So, and you can achieve that by using the non-visual when you use the summarize columns. Okay, and again, so you can apply the filter within the whatever the grand total that you created. So I did the same thing on the non-visual 2 column. So I fetched the entire internet sales amount. On top of it, again I filter out the bikes. That's the reason you see only the value under the bikes. The other row is showing as blank, but non-visual column, it's showing the grand total of the internet sales, grand total of the sales amount. Okay, so this is about non-visual function. Okay, it's a pretty good, right? So now moving on to the other two important functions or supported function are rollup, add, is subtotal, and rollup group. So rollup group we already talked in our summarize function where it will fetch the total subtotal information for a given group by columns. Okay. So now let's try to understand rollup add is subtotal. Okay, so now here this is how we write the rollup add is subtotal. What I'm trying to here, so I'm using the column name, category name, product category name. Under the product category name, I want to bring the bikes and clothing information. Okay, and then their respect to sales amount. Now what will happen, you can see here. So now it fetches the bikes and clothing information plus grand total. Grand total in the sense it's like irrespective of your product category name, the total sales amount from the internet sales. So this is one way of fetching the one way of using the rollup add is subtotal function. And if you extend further, even you can use the multiple rollup add is subtotal. So in the second statement, what I did, I used the product category combination as well as my subcategory combination. Now if I execute this statement, now you can see here. Okay, and then so it's a bit confusing, right, how these grand totals are created. Now let me do order by class. So product category name and then uh, subcategory name. Okay, product subcategory name. Now if I execute this, then you will clearly understand. So product category name and product subcategory names, my group by columns, and then product category total, product subcategory total. That is columns that we created using the subtotal, right, which will tell you what is this grand total, whether it's category and subcategory level or it's only at subcategory level. So that kind of information these two columns will tell you. Now if you look at this data, so the first row, it fetched entire sales amount irrespective of product category. That's the reason it's showing the category and subcategory total is true. But so again, it bought the subcategories. Under the subcategories, again in the here, where is that, yeah, here you bought the entire subcategory level grand total. Okay, similarly, and again you have the bikes. Under the bikes, again you have the different subcategory and those grand totals are appearing here. Okay, so basically these roll up add is subtotal and sub roll up groups, which will, I mean, usually we do these uh, grand total, subtotal, row level total, column total in Excel easily, right? The same way, these two functions will help you to do your totals in the different level. But I would suggest whenever you use these totals, make sure that you validated the data and make sure that the grand totals, subtotals all are arriving properly based on the business expectations. So that's about rollup add is subtotal. Now moving on to rollup group, how you can use the rollup group. This is the statement. So you can use the rollup group within the rollup add is subtotal. Now what will happen? We'll say execute this statement, and then so you can see here. So again, we have the rollup subtotal at product category level, and below that we have a rollup groups at subcategory and reorder point level. So you can refer these two columns and find out so which is belongs to the which grand total. Okay, so you can, if you execute this, so it will show the grand totals at different level. By using these two columns you can identify which grand total is belongs to what level. So this is how the roll up is subtotal and roll up group, and this is about all these five functions. Okay, it's a pretty important that you copy these statements and do the practice. And also if it is required, you copy paste this entire data and put it in Excel. Okay, and then do your validation whether it's the grand totals are calculating correctly or not. Or you can say like here I take the true, right? So this is true. That means, okay, so yeah, I will take this true, and this is sum of, right? So it's giving the grand total of 28,313, and it will match with somewhere, right? Uh, okay, 28,311. Yeah, it matches here. This entire grand total is appearing here. This is the grand total of your entire bike subtotal. These are the sum of these three values. Okay, this is how you can validate. Yeah, before without validation, you know, don't conclude and you will not understand. So you better to put it in Excel and then make sure you understand how this function works. Feel free to reach out to me in the comment section if you have any doubts on this function. And that's all for now. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.